I never thought I'd be sitting in a lawyer's office at 28 years old, watching my entire family inheritance slip through my fingers like sand. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and 3 months ago, my parents died in a car accident on Interstate 95, just outside of Richmond, Virginia. Today, I'm about to learn that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. The law office of Henderson and Associates sits on the 3rd floor of a brick building in downtown Richmond's financial district. Rain streaks down the tall windows as I fidget in the leather chair, the kind that probably costs more than my monthly rent. My older brother Marcus sits to my right, perfectly composed in his navy suit, checking his Rolex every few minutes. To my left, my sister Jessica scrolls through her iPhone, her manicured nails clicking against the screen. She's wearing a black Chanel dress that screams money. Money she's always had more access to than me. "Sorry to keep you waiting," says Mr. Henderson as he enters the room, a thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair. He carries a manila folder thick with documents. "I know this is a difficult time for all of you." The Virginia humidity makes the air conditioning work overtime, creating a constant low hum in the background. Outside, the James River flows lazily past the city, indifferent to the drama unfolding in this sterile office. I can smell the faint aroma of coffee from the reception area, mixed with the leather scent of expensive furniture. "Let's get this over with," Marcus says, straightening his tie. He's always been impatient, always ready to move on to the next thing. At 32, he's already a successful investment banker in Charlotte, North Carolina. Everything has always come easy to him. Mr. Henderson opens the file and pulls out several documents. "Your parents, Robert and Linda Mitchell, were very specific about their wishes. They updated their will just 6 months before the accident." My heart starts beating faster. 6 months ago, we had our last big family fight. It was at Jessica's engagement party in her fiancé's mansion in the suburbs of Richmond. I had confronted Mom and Dad about always favoring my siblings, about how they paid for Marcus's MBA at Duke University and Jessica's wedding planning business, while I struggled to pay off my student loans from Virginia Commonwealth University on a teacher's salary. The estate, valued at approximately $2.8 million, including the family home in Bon Air, the vacation cabin in Virginia Beach, investment accounts, and life insurance policies, is to be divided as follows. The room feels like it's shrinking. Jessica stops scrolling on her phone. Marcus leans forward. To Marcus Mitchell, I leave 40% of the estate, including the family home and primary investment accounts. To Jessica Mitchell Clark, I leave 40% of the estate, including the Virginia Beach property and remaining investment accounts. Silence. The air conditioning hum becomes deafening. And to Sarah Mitchell, Mr. Henderson pauses, looking directly at me. "You are to receive your mother's jewelry box and its contents, along with a letter your parents left specifically for you." 20%, that's what I expect to hear, maybe 15%. But jewelry and a letter? "I'm sorry, what?" My voice cracks. "What about the rest? What about my share?" Jessica finally looks up from her phone, her green eyes wide with surprise. "Wait, that can't be right." Marcus shifts uncomfortably. "Mr. Henderson, surely there's been a mistake." The lawyer shakes his head slowly. "I'm afraid not. Your parents were very clear. Sarah, they wanted me to give you this immediately." He slides a sealed envelope across the mahogany table. My name is written on it, in my mother's careful cursive handwriting. My hands shake as I take the envelope. The paper feels expensive, heavy. Nothing like the bills and junk mail I'm used to handling. This doesn't make sense. Why would they... we had problems? But to cut me out completely. "Sarah," Jessica says, reaching over to touch my arm. "I'm sure there's an explanation." But Marcus is already standing up, his mind clearly on the practical matters. "Mr. Henderson, when can we begin the transfer process? I'll need the house appraised, and there are tax implications to consider." I stare at the envelope in my hands. Through the window, I can see people walking along the sidewalks of downtown Richmond, going about their normal lives. College students from VCU probably heading to part-time jobs, business people grabbing lunch, tourists taking pictures of the historic architecture. None of them know that my world just collapsed. There is one more thing, Mr. Henderson says, pulling out another document. Your parents left very specific instructions about the family home. Sarah, you have the right to live there for up to 1 year if you choose, to sort through personal belongings and make arrangements. The deed won't transfer to Marcus until that time period expires or you formally waive the right. Marcus's jaw tightens. A year? That seems excessive. It's what they wanted, the lawyer replies firmly. I stand up abruptly, the leather chair squeaking. I need some air. The walls feel like they're closing in. The smell of coffee and leather is making me nauseous. Sarah, wait, Jessica calls, but I'm already at the door. In the hallway, fluorescent lights buzz overhead. A water cooler gurgles in the corner near the elevators. I lean against the wall, the envelope still clutched in my hand. Through the window at the end of the hall, I can see the parking garage, where my 10-year-old Honda Civic sits next to Marcus's BMW and Jessica's Mercedes SUV. The elevator dings, and my siblings step out. This is insane, Marcus says, running his hand through his perfectly styled brown hair. They can't just cut you out like that. We'll contest it. Will you? I ask, because you both just inherited over $1 million each. Jessica looks genuinely upset. Sarah, you know we'd share with you. We're family. Are we? Because apparently Mom and Dad didn't think so. The three of us stand in the sterile hallway, and for the first time in years, I really look at my siblings. Marcus with his expensive suit and Rolex. Jessica with her designer dress and perfect makeup. When did we become such strangers? Look, let's go get coffee and figure this out, Jessica suggests. There's that place on Broad Street you like. I need to go home, I say. I need to read this letter. To our childhood home? Marcus asks. Apparently it's still mine for now. The drive from downtown Richmond to Bon Air takes 25 minutes in afternoon traffic. I take Hull Street, passing strip malls and gas stations, then turn into the suburban neighborhood where I grew up. The trees are massive here, old oaks and maples that have stood for decades. The houses are a mix of colonial and ranch styles, most built in the 1980s when the area was developed. Our house sits on a corner lot at the end of Maple Grove Court. It's a 2-story colonial with white siding and black shutters, a wraparound porch, and Mom's carefully tended flower beds. The driveway is long enough for 3 cars, something Dad was proud of when they bought the house 30 years ago. I park behind Dad's old Buick, which has been sitting here since the accident. Nobody wanted to deal with selling it. The afternoon sun filters through the massive oak tree in the front yard, casting long shadows across the lawn that needs mowing. The key still works, of course. The front door opens to the familiar smell of home, Mom's vanilla candles, Dad's pipe tobacco, and something indefinable that just smells like family. The hardwood floors creak under my feet as I walk into the living room. Everything is exactly as they left it. Dad's reading glasses on the side table next to his recliner, Mom's knitting basket by the couch, the family photos on the mantle above the fireplace, school pictures, vacation shots, Christmas mornings. I'm in most of them, but suddenly I'm wondering if I was ever really part of this family at all. I sit on the couch, where I used to do homework, while Mom cooked dinner. The envelope feels heavy in my hands. Part of me doesn't want to open it. Part of me is terrified of what it might say, but I have to know. I tear open the envelope carefully, not wanting to damage whatever's inside. There are several sheets of paper, all in Mom's handwriting. The first page is dated just 4 months ago. My dearest Sarah, it begins. My dearest Sarah, if you're reading this, then your father and I are gone, and you've just learned about the will. I can only imagine how hurt and confused you must be right now. Please, before you hate us completely, read everything I've written. There's so much you don't know. So much we couldn't tell you while we were alive. First, you need to understand that leaving you out of the financial inheritance wasn't about punishment or favoritism. It was about protection. There are things about our family, about your birth, that we've kept secret for 28 years. We thought we were doing the right thing, but maybe we were just cowards. I stop reading and set the letter down. My hands are shaking. Protection? Secrets about my birth? I get up and walk to the kitchen, needing something to drink. The refrigerator hums quietly, covered with the same magnets that have been there for years. Vacation souvenirs, school fundraiser advertisements, family photos. I pour myself a glass of water from the tap and look out the kitchen window at the backyard. Mom's vegetable garden is overgrown now, tomato plants sprawling across their wooden supports. Dad's workshop sits at the back of the property, probably locked up with all his tools still inside. The afternoon sun slants through the window, warming my face. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a dog is barking. A lawnmower starts up a few houses away. Normal suburban sounds that suddenly feel surreal. I return to the couch and pick up the letter. Sarah, you were adopted. The words hit me like a physical blow. I read them again, 3 times, before they sink in. Adopted. I set the paper down and stare at the family photos on the mantle. Marcus, with Dad's brown eyes and square jaw. Jessica, with Mom's blonde hair and delicate features. And me. Dark hair, dark eyes, looking nothing like any of them. How did I never see it? We adopted you when you were 3 days old through a private arrangement. Your birth mother was 17 years old from a wealthy family in Northern Virginia. She couldn't keep you, but she loved you enough to want the best possible life for you. We promised her we would never tell you unless absolutely necessary. Her name was Catherine Ashworth. She was beautiful, Sarah, just like you. And she was smart. She had been accepted to Georgetown University with plans to study law. Having you meant giving up everything she had planned for her future? Catherine Ashworth. I've never heard that name before, but somehow it feels important. I get up again, pacing to the window. A UPS truck drives past, the driver waving at someone in another yard. Everything outside looks normal, but inside this house, my entire world is reshaping itself. Your biological father was a young man named David Chen. He was Catherine's boyfriend, also 17, also from a wealthy family. When Catherine told him she was pregnant, he wanted nothing to do with it. He went off to Stanford University and, as far as we know, never looked back. Catherine's parents were devastated. They were prominent in Alexandria society. Her father was a federal judge. Her mother was active in political circles. They couldn't handle the scandal of a teenage pregnancy. They gave Catherine 2 choices: terminate the pregnancy or give the baby up for adoption and never speak of it again. I sink back onto the couch. This explains so much, why I never felt like I quite fit, why Marcus and Jessica seemed to have an easier relationship with our parents, why family photos sometimes felt like I was looking at strangers. Catherine chose adoption, but she wanted to be involved in selecting your parents. She interviewed several couples through the adoption agency. When she met your father and me, she said she knew immediately that we were right. We had been trying to have children for 5 years with no success. You were our miracle, Sarah. We brought you home when you were a week old. You were perfect. Tiny fingers, dark hair that stuck up in every direction, and the most alert dark eyes we'd ever seen. Marcus was 4 years old then, and he was so excited to have a baby sister. Jessica was 2, and she wanted to help with everything: feeding you, changing diapers, picking out your clothes. Tears are streaming down my face now. I remember none of this, of course, but somehow I can picture it. Marcus would have been protective even then. Jessica would have treated me like her personal doll. For 3 years, everything was wonderful. You were such a happy baby, then a curious toddler. You loved books even before you could read. You would carry picture books around the house and make up stories about the illustrations. Your father used to say you were going to be a writer someday. Then, when you were 3, Catherine contacted us. I stopped reading. Catherine contacted them? When I was 3? She had finished high school and was about to start at Georgetown. She had never stopped thinking about you. She wanted to know how you were doing, to see pictures, maybe even to meet you. She said she didn't want to disrupt your life, but she couldn't stop wondering if she had made the right choice. Your father and I were terrified. We had grown to love you so completely that the thought of losing you was unbearable. But we also understood Catherine's feelings. We agreed to let her visit, just once, to meet you and see that you were happy and healthy. She came to the house on a Saturday afternoon in spring. You were playing in the backyard with Marcus and Jessica, and when Catherine saw you, she started crying. You looked so much like her, Sarah. The same dark hair, the same intelligent eyes, the same way of tilting your head when you were thinking. You were shy at first, hiding behind my legs, but Catherine was so gentle with you. She brought you a children's book about a little girl who goes on adventures. You loved it immediately. Within an hour, you were sitting next to her on the porch swing, asking her to read it over and over again. I remember that book. It was about a girl named Luna who explored magical forests and made friends with woodland creatures. It was my favorite for years. I had no idea where it came from. When it was time for Catherine to leave, you didn't want her to go. You asked if she could come back and play again. Catherine looked at your father and me with tears in her eyes and said, "She's perfect. You've given her such a beautiful life. Thank you." We thought that would be the end of it. But Catherine started writing letters, plural. I look at the papers in my hands. There are several more pages of Mom's handwriting, plus what looks like other documents underneath. At first, it was just occasional updates on her life. She had started college, was doing well in her classes, had made friends. She always asked about you, how you were doing in preschool, what your favorite toys were, whether you still loved books. Your father and I decided to write back. We sent pictures and told her about your accomplishments. When you started kindergarten, we sent her copies of your artwork. When you lost your first tooth, we told her how excited you were about the tooth fairy. This went on for years, Sarah. Catherine never asked to see you again, but she stayed connected to your life through our letters. She graduated from Georgetown with honors, went to law school at University of Virginia, and became a successful attorney in Washington, D.C. When you were 10, she got married to another lawyer named Michael Roberts. When you were 12, she had a daughter named Emma. She sent us a birth announcement and wrote, "Emma will never replace the daughter I gave up, but she helps heal the hole in my heart." I'm crying harder now. This woman, my birth mother, has been loving me from a distance for 25 years, and I knew nothing about it. When you were 16 and going through that difficult phase, do you remember how angry you were that year? We almost told you the truth. You kept saying you felt like you didn't belong in our family, that we didn't understand you. You were right in a way. You were different from Marcus and Jessica, not just in looks, but in temperament. You were more serious, more questioning, more independent. I remember being 16. I was angry all the time, felt like my parents were too controlling, too conventional. I wanted to travel, to experience the world, to ask big questions about life and purpose. Marcus and Jessica seemed content with the suburban Virginia lifestyle, but I felt trapped by it. Catherine understood. When we wrote to her about your struggles, she wrote back with such insight about teenage emotions and identity formation. She said, "Sarah is trying to figure out who she is, and she senses that something doesn't quite fit. Maybe it's time to tell her the truth." But we were scared, Sarah. We were afraid you would want to leave us, to go live with Catherine and her new family. We were afraid you would hate us for lying to you for so long. So we kept the secret, and we watched you struggle through high school and college, always feeling like an outsider in your own family. The afternoon light is fading now. I can hear the evening sounds beginning. Garage doors opening as people come home from work, children being called in for dinner. I should turn on some lights, but I can't seem to move from this couch. The letters continued through your college years. Catherine was so proud when you decided to become a teacher. She said, "Sarah has always loved learning and books. She's going to inspire so many children." When you graduated from VCU, we sent her a copy of your graduation photo. She wrote back saying, "She looks so much like I did at that age. I hope she's happier than I was." When you started teaching at Henrico Elementary, Catherine was thrilled. She said teaching was one of the most important professions, that you were making a real difference in the world. She understood why you chose it, even when your father and I sometimes worried about the low salary and challenging working conditions. And then, 6 months ago, everything changed. I turned the page. Mom's handwriting looks shakier here, like she was emotional while writing. Catherine was diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage 4. The doctors said she had maybe 6 months to live. She called us Sarah. For the first time in 25 years, we actually spoke on the phone. Her voice was weak, but she was still the same intelligent, compassionate woman we had met all those years ago. She said, "I'm dying, and I need to know that Sarah knows the truth. I need to know that she understands she was loved from the very beginning." We told her we would think about it, but Catherine didn't have time to wait for us to overcome our fears. 3 weeks later, she wrote us the most heartbreaking letter we had ever received. Mom's letter ends there. I look through the remaining papers. There's another envelope, this one addressed to my parents in different handwriting, shakier, weaker. The postmark is from Alexandria, Virginia, dated 4 months ago. This must be Catherine's letter. Dear Linda and Robert, I hope this letter finds you both in good health. I'm writing from my hospital bed at Georgetown University Hospital, where I've been receiving chemotherapy treatments. The doctors tell me I have very little time left, which is why I can no longer wait for the perfect moment to share what I need to tell you. I'm dying, and Sarah doesn't know I exist. For 25 years, I've lived with the choice I made when I was 17. Not a day has passed that I haven't thought about her, wondered about her, loved her from a distance. Your letters and photographs have been my lifeline to the daughter I gave up, but never stopped being a mother to, in my heart. I need to tell you about the day Sarah was born. I set the letter down for a moment. Outside, streetlights are beginning to flicker on as dusk settles over the neighborhood. I should eat something. I haven't had food since breakfast, but I can't stop reading. I was in labor for 18 hours at Inova Fairfax Hospital. My parents weren't there. They had made it clear that this pregnancy was something I had to handle alone. David, Sarah's biological father, was already at Stanford, pretending none of this was happening. But I wasn't completely alone. The adoption counselor, Mrs. Patterson, stayed with me through most of the labor. She told me about you and Robert, how excited you were, how you had already prepared a nursery with yellow walls because you didn't know if the baby would be a boy or girl. When Sarah was born on March 15th at 6:47 a.m., she was perfect. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and the most alert eyes I'd ever seen. The nurses said most newborns can't really focus, but Sarah looked right at me. I know that sounds impossible, but I swear she saw me. They let me hold her for exactly 1 hour. I had requested that in my birth plan, 1 hour to say goodbye. I told her everything I wanted her to know. I told her I loved her more than life itself. I told her she was going to have wonderful parents who would give her all the opportunities I couldn't. I told her I hoped she would grow up to be curious and brave and kind, and then I had to let her go. The hardest part wasn't the physical pain of childbirth or even the emotional pain of giving her up. The hardest part was walking out of that hospital with empty arms, knowing I would never hold my daughter again. I went back to my parents' house in Alexandria, finished my senior year of high school, and pretended everything was normal. My friends thought I had spent the spring semester in Europe as an exchange student. My parents never spoke of those months again. We all acted like Sarah had never happened, but she had happened. She was real, and she was mine. And giving her to you didn't change the fact that somewhere in my DNA, in my cellular memory, I would always be her mother. I'm sobbing now. This woman, my birth mother, loved me so completely that she's carried me in her heart for 28 years. And she's dying without ever getting to know the person I became. College was difficult. I threw myself into my studies, partly to honor the sacrifice I had made, and partly to distract myself from the hole in my heart. Every March 15th, Sarah's birthday, I would light a candle and wonder what she was doing, whether she was happy, whether she ever thought about the woman who gave birth to her. Your first letter, when Sarah was 6 months old, was like receiving a miracle. She was healthy, she was loved, she was thriving. The photograph you sent showed a beautiful baby with bright, curious eyes. I carried that picture in my wallet for years. As the letters continued, I watched Sarah grow through your words and photographs. Her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. You shared everything with me, and I treasured every detail. When she learned to read, when she won the spelling bee in 3rd grade, when she played a shepherd in the Christmas pageant, I celebrated every milestone from afar. You gave me the greatest gift parents can give. You let me know that my daughter was happy. I finished college, went to law school, built a career. I specialized in family law, partly because I understood so deeply what it meant to make impossible choices about children's welfare. I helped dozens of families navigate adoption, custody disputes, and child welfare cases. In a way, Sarah inspired every case I took. When I married Michael, I told him about Sarah immediately. He understood that she would always be part of my heart, even though she wasn't part of my daily life. When Emma was born, I loved her completely, but I also understood more deeply what I had given up. Raising Emma showed me all the moments I had missed with Sarah: bedtime stories, scraped knees, school plays, teenage dramas. But I never regretted my choice. Your letters proved that Sarah was exactly where she needed to be. The next page of the letter is stained with what looks like dried tears. I'm telling you all of this because I need you to understand something important. When I was diagnosed with cancer 6 months ago, my first thought wasn't about my own mortality. It was about Sarah. I realized that she's lived 28 years without knowing her complete story, and if I die without her knowing the truth, part of her story dies with me. I don't want to disrupt her life. I don't want to cause problems in your family, but I need her to know that she was conceived in love, even if that love was young and frightened. I need her to know that giving her up was the hardest thing I ever did, but also the most loving. I need her to know that not a single day has passed that I haven't thought of her and wished her well, and I need her to know about her biological father. David Chen is now Dr. David Chen, a successful orthopedic surgeon in San Francisco. He never knew I kept track of him, but I did. He married his college girlfriend, a woman named Susan Liu, and they have twin boys, who are now 15 years old. David never knew that Sarah existed beyond that phone call when I told him I was pregnant. But here's what Sarah needs to know: David's medical history. His family has a genetic predisposition to a rare form of diabetes that typically manifests in the early 30s. His grandmother and father both had it. If Sarah is going to develop it, she needs to know now so she can be monitored and treated early. This is why I can't wait any longer for the perfect time to tell her the truth. Her health could depend on knowing her biological medical history. I stop reading and stare at the page. A genetic predisposition to diabetes. I'm 28 years old, almost in my early 30s. This isn't just about emotional truth anymore. It's about my health, my future. There's something else Sarah needs to know. I've been putting money aside for her since she was born. Not much at first. I was a struggling student. But as my law practice grew successful, I was able to save more. It's currently in a trust fund that totals just over $400,000. I always planned to give this to her someday, maybe when she got married or bought her first house. I wanted her to have opportunities, to travel, to pursue dreams without worrying about money. I know teaching doesn't pay well, and I wanted to support her career choice, even if I couldn't support it in person. The trust fund is administered by my attorney, James Morrison, in Alexandria. I've left instructions that if something happens to me, he should contact Sarah directly. But I'd prefer, if you told her about it, if you explained where it came from and why. $400,000. Catherine, my birth mother, has been saving money for me for 28 years. Money that could pay off my student loans, help me buy a house, give me the freedom to travel like I've always dreamed of doing. I know this letter is asking a lot of you. I know you're probably scared of how Sarah will react, worried about how this will change your relationship with her. But please trust me when I say that knowing the truth won't make her love you any less. You've been her parents in every way that matters. You raised her, shaped her, loved her through all the stages of her life. Nothing can change that. But she deserves to know her complete story. She deserves to understand why she sometimes feels different from Marcus and Jessica. She deserves to know that she has a half-sister named Emma, who is 15 years old and looks remarkably like Sarah did at that age. She deserves to know her medical history, and she deserves to know that her birth mother never stopped loving her. If I die before you tell her, please give her this letter. Tell her that Catherine Ashworth Roberts thought about her every single day. Tell her that she was born from love, even if that love was complicated and young. Tell her that she has always been wanted, always been treasured, always been enough. And tell her that if she ever wants to know more about her biological family, my daughter Emma would love to meet her big sister. With all my love and gratitude for the beautiful life you gave my daughter, Catherine P.S. I've enclosed some photographs I thought Sarah might like to see. The first is of me when I was pregnant with her. The second is of me at 17, around the time she was conceived. The third is of Emma last year. The resemblance is remarkable. The fourth is of David from his high school yearbook. I thought she might want to know what her biological father looked like when he was young. I look through the remaining papers and find 4 photographs. The first shows a young woman with dark hair and a gentle smile, her hand resting on a very pregnant belly. She's standing in what looks like a garden, surrounded by spring flowers. She looks so young, but there's something familiar about her face. The second photograph is a high school portrait. The resemblance is startling. She could be my sister, or me in a different time period. Same dark hair, same dark eyes, same serious expression. The third photograph shows a teenage girl with lighter hair but similar features, laughing at something off camera. This must be Emma, my half-sister. She's beautiful, and Catherine was right. There's definitely a family resemblance. The fourth photograph is from a high school yearbook page. David Chen, class of 1997, is printed beneath the photo. He's handsome, with kind eyes and a confident smile. My biological father. I sit in the growing darkness of my childhood living room, surrounded by the truth I've been searching for my entire life, without even knowing I was searching for it. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 7 times. Somewhere in the kitchen, the refrigerator hums. Outside, the neighborhood settles into evening routines. Garage doors closing, porch lights coming on, the distant sound of a television through someone's open window. I have a half-sister named Emma. I have a trust fund with $400,000 that my birth mother saved for me. I have a biological father in San Francisco who doesn't know I exist. I have a genetic predisposition to diabetes that I need to monitor. And I have answers to questions I didn't even know I had. But there's one more page in Mom's letter. Sarah, there's one more thing you need to know, and it's the real reason we left you out of the will. Catherine died 2 weeks ago. My hands freeze on the paper. She's dead. My birth mother is dead, and I never got to meet her, never got to thank her for loving me enough to give me life, and then loving me enough to give me a better life than she could provide at 17. Her attorney, James Morrison, called us immediately. Catherine had left instructions that if she died before we told you the truth, he was to contact us first, not you. She wanted to give us one last chance to explain everything before involving lawyers and strangers. Mr. Morrison told us that Catherine's trust fund for you is real and it's substantial. But there's more, Sarah, much more. Catherine never remarried after her husband Michael died in a car accident 3 years ago. Emma, your half-sister, is now 15 years old and has been living with Catherine's parents in Alexandria since the cancer got worse. But Catherine's will names you as Emma's guardian. I dropped the letter. Guardian? I'm supposed to be the guardian of a 15-year-old girl I've never met? Catherine left everything to Emma. Her house in Arlington, her law practice, her investments. But she also left instructions that Emma should be raised by you if you're willing. She believed that Emma needs to know her big sister and that you would be the best person to help Emma navigate the teenage years ahead. Sarah, Catherine left you much more than money. She left you a family, but there's also a problem. Catherine's parents, Emma's grandparents, are fighting the will. They want custody of Emma themselves, and they're claiming that you're unfit to be a guardian because you're not related to Emma by blood. They don't acknowledge that you're Catherine's biological daughter because the adoption was sealed and private. Mr. Morrison says that if you want to claim guardianship of Emma, you'll have to prove in court that you're Catherine's biological daughter. That means making the adoption public, possibly involving David Chen, definitely disrupting Emma's life during an already difficult time. We left you out of the financial inheritance because we knew you were about to inherit much more than money. We knew you were about to inherit responsibility for a grieving teenager, a legal battle, and a complicated family situation. We wanted you to be free to make that choice without worrying about how it would affect Marcus and Jessica's inheritance. This is unbelievable. In one day, I've gone from being the daughter left out of the will to being the potential guardian of a half-sister I've never met, inheriting a legal battle with grandparents who don't want to acknowledge I exist, and having access to a trust fund that could change my entire life. We also knew that if you decided to take on Emma's guardianship, you might need to move to Northern Virginia to be closer to her school and her support system. The money from our estate wouldn't help you with that transition, but Catherine's trust fund would. There's one more letter, Sarah. Catherine wrote it specifically for you, to be opened only after you learned the truth about everything else. Mr. Morrison has it, and he's waiting for your call. We're sorry we couldn't tell you all of this while we were alive. We were scared of losing you, scared of disrupting the family we had built together. We thought we were protecting you, but maybe we were just protecting ourselves. You are our daughter in every way that matters, Sarah. You always have been, you always will be. But you're also Catherine's daughter, and Emma's sister, and your own person with your own choices to make. Whatever you decide about Emma, about the legal battle, about the trust fund, we want you to know that we love you unconditionally. We're proud of the woman you've become, your compassion, your dedication to teaching, your strong sense of justice. These qualities will serve you well in whatever comes next. The jewelry box I mentioned in the will contains more than jewelry, Sarah. Look for the hidden compartment at the bottom. Inside, you'll find all of Catherine's letters to us over the years, organized by date. You'll also find copies of all the letters we wrote to her about you. It's a complete record of how much you were loved by both families. And there's one more thing in that hidden compartment. The business card for James Morrison, Catherine's attorney. He's expecting your call. Marcus and Jessica don't know any of this yet. We wanted you to have time to process everything before deciding how much to share with them. They love you, Sarah, and they'll support whatever choice you make. But this decision is yours alone. We hope you can forgive us for keeping these secrets. We hope you understand that everything we did came from love, even when we made mistakes. All our love, always. Mom, and Dad, P.S. Catherine's final letter for you is sealed, and with Mr. Morrison. She titled it, For Sarah, my brave daughter. She finished writing it the day before she died. I set the letter down and look around the living room. The shadows have grown longer and the house feels different now. Not like the childhood home where I never quite belonged, but like a bridge between my old life and whatever comes next. I walk upstairs to my parents' bedroom. Mom's jewelry box sits on her dresser, exactly where it's been for as long as I can remember. It's mahogany wood with an intricate pattern carved into the top, lined with deep blue velvet. I've looked through it before. Her wedding ring, some pearl earrings, a few vintage brooches that belonged to her mother. But I've never looked for a hidden compartment. I carry the box downstairs and set it on the coffee table under the lamp. Running my fingers along the bottom, I find a small latch I never noticed before. When I press it, a section of the bottom slides away, revealing a space about 2 inches deep. Inside are dozens of letters, organized in 2 neat stacks with rubber bands around them. One stack is labeled From Catherine, and the other To Catherine. There's also a manila envelope containing what looks like photographs, and a business card. James Morrison, attorney at law, Alexandria, Virginia. I pick up the stack labeled From Catherine and remove the rubber band. These letters span 25 years, from when I was an infant to just months before Catherine died. The paper changes over the years, from college-ruled notebook paper in the early letters to professional letterhead. As Catherine established her law practice, I opened the first letter, dated when I was 6 months old. Dear Linda and Robert, thank you for the photograph of Sarah. She's beautiful. I can see she has my eyes, but your smile, Linda. Is she sleeping through the night yet? I remember reading that most babies start sleeping longer, stretches around this age. Even in this early letter, Catherine writes like a mother. She's not just asking for updates. She's sharing in the experience of raising me, offering advice, celebrating milestones. I flip through several more letters, watching Catherine's life unfold alongside mine. Her college years, law school, her first job at a prestigious Washington, D.C. firm. But every letter comes back to me. Questions about my development, pride in my accomplishments, worry during difficult phases. One letter from when I was 8 years old particularly stands out. Sarah sounds like she's becoming quite the little activist. You mentioned she organized a petition to save the old oak tree in your neighborhood from being cut down. That determination reminds me so much of myself at that age. I used to drive my parents crazy with my campaigns to save various causes. Please tell her that her birth mother is very proud of her for standing up for what she believes in. I remember that tree campaign. I was so upset when the city wanted to cut down a massive oak tree to widen the road. I went door to door getting signatures, wrote letters to the city council, even gave a speech at a public hearing. We saved the tree. It's still standing in the Hendersons' front yard 2 streets over. I had no idea that my birth mother knew about it, or that she saw herself in my childhood activism. Another letter from my high school years. I understand Sarah is going through a difficult phase. You mentioned she feels like she doesn't fit in with the family, that she's questioning everything. This breaks my heart, but it also makes me proud. She's developing critical thinking skills and a strong sense of self. These are qualities that will serve her well in life, even if they make the teenage years challenging. Please tell her, without revealing who the message is from, that feeling different isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some of the most interesting people in the world are the ones who question, who think deeply, who refuse to accept things just because that's how they've always been done. She shouldn't try to make herself smaller to fit in. The world needs people like Sarah. Tears blur my vision. All those years when I felt like an outsider in my own family, Catherine understood exactly what I was going through. She saw my struggles not as problems to be fixed, but as signs of strength to be celebrated. I pick up the stack labeled To Catherine. These are copies of the letters my parents wrote to my birth mother over the years. Mom's handwriting is familiar, but seeing it in this context feels strange. These letters are full of details about my life that I never knew my parents were sharing with anyone. One letter from when I was in college particularly catches my attention. Dear Catherine, Sarah has declared her major, elementary education. Robert and I have to admit we were hoping she might choose something more financially stable. But after reading your last letter about the importance of following one's passion, we're trying to be more supportive. You're right that Sarah has always been drawn to helping others learn and grow. Even as a child, she would line up her stuffed animals and teach them math and reading. She has such patience with children and such enthusiasm for making learning fun. We should be proud that she's choosing a career that matches her heart, even if it doesn't match our bank account expectations. She's student teaching at an elementary school in Richmond, and her supervising teacher says Sarah has a natural gift for connecting with children. She seems happiest when she's in the classroom. I think you would be proud of the woman she's becoming. My parents wrote to Catherine about their concerns regarding my career choice, but also about their growing understanding of who I was becoming. They were learning to see me through Catherine's eyes, as someone whose value couldn't be measured by salary or conventional success. I checked the time on my phone. It's almost 9 o'clock. I should call James Morrison, but the law office is probably closed. I should eat something, but I'm not hungry. I should call Marcus and Jessica and tell them what I've learned, but I'm not ready for that conversation yet. Instead, I dial the number on James Morrison's business card. To my surprise, someone answers. Morrison Law Offices, this is James Morrison. Mr. Morrison, this is Sarah Mitchell. I believe you're expecting my call. There's a pause. Sarah, yes, I've been waiting to hear from you. I'm sorry for your recent losses, both your adoptive parents and Catherine. I know this must be an incredibly difficult time. His voice is kind, professional, but warm. Can you tell me, is it true? About Emma? About the guardianship? It's all true, Sarah. Catherine was very specific in her will. She wanted Emma to be raised by you if you're willing and able. But I have to be honest, Catherine's parents are fighting this. They've hired an attorney and they're claiming that since your adoption was private and sealed, there's no legal proof that you're Catherine's daughter. But there are records, right? Birth certificates, adoption papers? Yes, but they're sealed. To access them, we'll need to petition the court. It's not impossible, but it will take time, and it will make everything public. Catherine understood this risk, but she believed it was worth it for Emma to know her sister. I take a deep breath. What is Emma like? Does she know about me? Emma is remarkable, Sarah. She's intelligent, creative, and incredibly mature for 15. She's been through so much. Losing her father 3 years ago, watching her mother battle cancer, and now facing an uncertain future. But she's resilient. And yes, she knows about you. Catherine told her everything about 2 months before she died. Emma has been asking to meet you, but Catherine wanted to wait until after you learned the truth about your own story. She wants to meet me? Very much. She's been living with Catherine's parents since the funeral, but it's not a good situation. They blame Emma for Catherine's choice to contact your family, and they're making it clear that they see guardianship as a duty, not a joy. Emma is lonely, Sarah. She needs family who will love her, not just tolerate her. The weight of this decision settles on my shoulders. A 15-year-old girl I've never met is waiting to find out if her unknown half-sister will uproot her entire life to become her guardian. Meanwhile, her grandparents are fighting to maintain custody, probably with resources and legal representation I can't match on a teacher's salary. But there's also Catherine's trust fund. $400,000 that could pay for lawyers, could help me relocate to Northern Virginia, could provide stability for both Emma and me. Mr. Morrison, can I ask you something? Why did Catherine choose me? She barely knew me. She knew I was young, that I've never raised a teenager, that I have no legal experience for this kind of battle. Why not choose someone more qualified? There's a long pause. Sarah, Catherine followed your life for 28 years through your parents' letters. She knew about your volunteer work with underprivileged students, your advocacy for educational resources, your ability to connect with young people who feel like outsiders. She said you would understand Emma's need to feel truly wanted, not just legally obligated to. But more than that, Catherine believed that Emma needs to know where she comes from. Emma has spent her whole life knowing she had an older sister somewhere and wondering about you. Catherine thought that connection, that sense of biological family, would help Emma heal from losing her mother. I walk to the window and look out at the quiet suburban street. Porch lights illuminate front yards where children probably played earlier today. In a few hours, parents will be waking kids up for school, packing lunches, rushing through morning routines. Normal family life that I've always observed from the sidelines, never quite feeling like I belonged. But maybe belonging isn't about blood or legal documents. Maybe it's about choosing to show up for someone who needs you. Mr. Morrison, I need to ask you about something else. Catherine mentioned in her letter that I might need to involve my biological father, David Chen, in the legal proceedings. That's possible. If Catherine's parents continue to challenge your legal standing, we might need David to provide DNA evidence or testimony confirming that you're Catherine's biological daughter. I have to warn you, Sarah, this could get complicated. David has a family in San Francisco who might not know about you. But it's also possible he'd want to help. People change a lot from 17 to 45. He might be a different person now than he was when Catherine was pregnant. Another decision to make. Another person whose life could be disrupted by my choice. Can I think about this overnight? I know Emma is waiting, but this is, of course, take the time you need. But Sarah, I do need to tell you. Catherine left a final letter for you. She asked me not to give it to you until after you'd learned everything else, until you'd had time to process the full situation. Would you like me to read it to you over the phone? Or would you prefer to receive it in person? I think about Catherine's final words, written when she knew she was dying, intended for the daughter she'd never gotten to raise. Can you read it to me now? Are you sure? You've had a lot to absorb today. I'm sure. I hear papers rustling. Then James Morrison begins to read in his kind, steady voice. My brave daughter Sarah, if you're hearing this letter, then you know the truth about your birth, about our letters, about Emma, and about the impossible choice I'm asking you to make. I wish I could be there to answer your questions, to help you navigate what comes next, to tell you in person how proud I am of the woman you've become. I know you're scared. I know this seems overwhelming. You're 28 years old, and I'm asking you to become a mother to a grieving 15-year-old, to fight a legal battle against people with more resources, to make decisions that will change the course of multiple lives. But Sarah, you are so much stronger than you know. I've watched you from a distance for 28 years. I've seen you stand up for what's right, even when it was difficult. I've seen you choose compassion over convenience, justice over comfort. I've seen you dedicate your career to helping children who need advocates. Emma needs an advocate now. She needs someone who understands what it feels like to be different, to question, to search for belonging. She needs someone who will see her strength instead of just her struggles. You don't have to be a perfect guardian, Sarah. You just have to be present, honest, and willing to figure it out as you go. Emma doesn't need someone who has all the answers. She needs someone who cares enough to help her find her own answers. I believe you are that person. But I also want you to know that whatever you decide, I am proud of you. If you choose not to take on Emma's guardianship, that doesn't make you selfish or wrong. It makes you honest about your limitations. And there's courage in that, too. The trust fund is yours regardless of your decision about Emma. I saved that money because I wanted you to have choices, to have freedom, to have the security I couldn't provide when I was 17. Use it wisely, but use it for yourself. You deserve to travel, to pursue dreams, to live fully. If you do decide to become Emma's guardian, know that you won't be alone. My best friend, Dr. Sarah Williams, has offered to help with the transition. Emma's school counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, is wonderful. and has resources for teenage grief support. And Emma herself is resilient, intelligent, and so ready to love the big sister she's wondered about her whole life. Sarah, I need you to know that giving you up was both the hardest and the most loving thing I ever did. But if I could do it again, if I could go back to that 17-year-old girl making an impossible choice, I would make the same decision. You got the childhood you deserved, the parents who could give you stability and love, the education and opportunities I couldn't provide. But now you're an adult, and you get to make your own choices about family, about love, about what matters most. I hope you choose Emma. I hope you choose to let her know where she comes from, to help her understand that she is part of a larger story of love and sacrifice and hope. I hope you choose to give her what I couldn't give you, the chance to grow up knowing her biological family. But whatever you choose, know that you were loved from the very beginning. Know that somewhere in heaven, two mothers are cheering you on. All my love always, Catherine P.S. Emma has your smile, Sarah, and your stubborn streak, and your way of tilting her head when she's thinking. You're going to love her. Mr. Morrison finishes reading, and we sit in silence for a moment. Through the phone, I can hear the distant sounds of traffic, the hum of office equipment. Through the window, I can see my neighbors' houses, each one containing families with their own complicated stories. Sarah, are you still there? I'm here. Mr. Morrison, can I meet Emma before I make my final decision? I know that might be confusing for her, but I need to see if we actually connect, if this could work. I think that's wise. Catherine's parents are reluctant, but legally they can't prevent a supervised meeting. I could arrange something for this weekend if you'd like. Yes, I'd like that very much. There's one more thing, Sarah. Emma asked me to tell you something if you called. She said, "Tell Sarah that I've been waiting my whole life to meet my big sister, and I promise I won't be too much trouble if she decides to love me." My heart breaks and heals at the same time. A 15-year-old girl who just lost her mother is worried about being too much trouble for the sister she's never met. Mr. Morrison, I think I've already made my decision, but I still want to meet Emma first, to make sure she's comfortable with me too. I'll call Catherine's parents tonight and arrange a meeting for Saturday afternoon. There's a park in Alexandria where Emma likes to go, neutral territory for everyone. After I hang up, I sit in the quiet house surrounded by letters and photographs and the evidence of a love story I never knew existed. Tomorrow, I'll call the principal at Henrico Elementary and request a leave of absence. I'll call Marcus and Jessica and try to explain why our parents made the choice they did. I'll start researching apartments in Northern Virginia and family lawyers and teenage grief counseling. But tonight, I'm going to read every single letter Catherine wrote over 25 years. I'm going to study the photographs of Emma and try to imagine what it will be like to meet my half-sister. I'm going to call David Chen's office in San Francisco and leave a message that will probably change his life too, because Catherine was right. I am stronger than I know. And Emma, my brave little sister who's been waiting her whole life to meet me, deserves to know that she's wanted, not just needed. She deserves to know that sometimes the most important families are the ones we choose to build, one difficult decision at a time. Outside, the neighborhood settles into sleep. Porch lights flicker off, garage doors close. The distant hum of the interstate fades into background noise. Inside this house where I grew up always feeling like something was missing, I finally understand what that something was. It wasn't that I didn't belong here. It's that I was always meant to belong somewhere else too. With Emma, with the truth about Catherine's love, with the complicated, beautiful mess of family that extends beyond blood and law and geography. Tomorrow, everything changes. Tonight, I'm exactly where I need to be, surrounded by letters from a mother who loved me enough to let me go, preparing to meet a sister who needs me to be brave enough to stay. The story isn't ending, it's just beginning.